be fired for not getting vaccinated. We need every employee there is. Give 40% of the school to the 40% of the students non-mask, non-vax, and then that staff that don't believe in it. Same thing with businesses, restaurants, bars. Let's go to like the watering ban. Odd days, you have mask, vax staff serving mask vax clientele. Even days, you have the non-vaxxers with non-vax max clientele. Then that way, everyone's with their own kind. You don't have to have employees at the door demanding cards or masks. I mean, that's just putting them on the spot. In the school, then you'll have like-minded students with one another and no disruptions, and it's imperative that children are in school to get an education. If you can't divide a school up, well, then let's just have one school here for all mask vaxxers and another school, then let them deal with their own problems. Anyone who threatens any school board or teacher with a gun, their child should be expelled from that school. There's no reason for that. I saw it tonight on the news and in the last week. These people just show up and all they do is threat. They don't offer any viable solutions whatsoever. And the scary thing is, these people vote for people in public office who encourage that kind of behavior. That's beyond reason. So, 34 seconds. My dad was a teacher, guidance counselor, my principal my sophomore, junior year of high school. That sucked. He come to Minnesota, worked for state corrections, ended up serving as warden at Stillwater State Prison for 12 years. He said being a teacher and a principal prepared him well to be warden, except he didn't have to put up with the school board, parents, PTA. At the prison, he was the man, and the big key ring that he carried. And if anyone would have threatened him with a gun, he'd have took it from him. And thank you.
Thank you.
We have Alan Halsey, who is a community member.
Well, good evening, everyone. And well, first off, I want to say congratulations, Mannix, on your recent election to the school board, and welcome to the school board. So I wanted to talk a little bit today about the staffing issues that have been brought to light about this school district, and address a bit of an angle that I think this board might be missing. Now, this was recently brought to light in an NPR article in which the Brimhall principal was mentioned. Now, for those of you on the board, you probably remember this, but just to refresh your memory, last summer I had a run-in with this principal. Basically, I went onto his Facebook page and saw that he was promoting transgender pronoun usage for elementary school students. I voiced my concerns about this, and then he proceeded to publicly berate me, swear at me, bully me, and harass me on social media. In addition, one of his colleagues, now his colleague of his is not employed by the Roseville School District, but nevertheless, this colleague of his actually reached out to my employer at near Lutheran High School and basically demanded that I would be fired from my position, essentially. And I would also like to point out to this board that to this day, this principal has not even apologized to me or offered an apology for his actions on social media. Now, my wife worked as a reading tutor at Brimhall Elementary School for 2 years. This was a number of years ago. And I can tell you that after this incident, she certainly has no interest in working for the Roseville School District. And I would like this board to put yourself in the position of an educator. If you're looking for a place to work and you find that you could be publicly vilified, demonized, and bullied, and potentially have your career destroyed for pointing out that boys are boys and girls are girls, and refuse to go along with, well, promoting falsehoods to children by doing the transgender pronoun usage, why would you want to work for that school? And why would you want to work for a school district that tolerates that type of behavior from a principal, someone who's in charge? And so I really think that part of this staff shortage, and I know that there are many factors that go into staff shortages, I don't dispute that, but I think one very critical angle that we need to address if we are going to solve the staffing shortage is to do a little bit of introspection and ask ourselves very bluntly and very honestly, why would anyone want to work for the Roseville School District? Why would anyone want to work for a Roseville School District where you could have your life destroyed and have some people that want to ruin you for simply acknowledging the truth? The truth is that boys are boys, girls are girls. And I understand that there's some confusion that goes along with this, but we have to lead children out of the darkness of confusion and into the light of the truth. And so I just wanted to say to this board that to address these staffing issues, I think this is one very critical angle that we need to ask ourselves is, why would anyone want to work for our school district? So thank you very much for your time.
Okay, all right.
We have Angela Byrne, who is a parent.
Good evening. I am a proud Harambe parent of a first grader who is distance learning, and she is doing just fine with my assistance. It is hard, it is difficult for her, but it is the right thing to do in light of the caseloads we've had in the school district. And you know what? She'll be fine. She'll be ready for the future. She'll be ready for the tech future. We'll get through this together as a district. But regarding people being concerned about being berated for their opinions and expressing those opinions, man, just think about if you were transgender in this community. How that would feel, what people would have to say about you then. Tough. Must be tough to have consequences for the things that you say out loud. So also addressing previous comments about the racial equity education provided in this district. That is why I am here. That's why my child is in this district, is to be provided a well-rounded education. Someone has suggested that we teach more Martin Luther King Jr. than we do Ibram X. Kendi. So I tend to agree with this. Martin Luther King Jr. had some very important ideas that he expressed, one of which in a speech from 1967, where in his Beyond Vietnam speech, where he said, the true revolution of values will soon look uneasily on the glaring contrast of poverty and wealth. With righteous indignation, it will look across the seas and see individual capitalists of the West investing huge sums of money in Asia, Africa, and South America, only to take the profits out with no concern for the social betterment of the countries and say this is not just. It will look at our alliance with the landed gentry of South America and say this is not just. The Western arrogance of feeling that it has everything to teach others and nothing to learn from them is not just. A true revolution of values will lay hands on the world order and say of war, this way, the settling differences is not just. This business of burning human beings with napalm, of filling our nation's homes with orphans and widows, of injecting poisonous drugs of hate into the veins of people normally humane, of sending men home from dark and bloody battlefields, physically handicapped and psychologically deranged, cannot be reconciled with wisdom, justice, and love. A nation that continues year after year to spend more money on military defense than on programs of social uplift is approaching spiritual death. Trans people are people. My daughter is a trans girl. She is a girl. There is no dispute about that. Thank you.
Chair Johnson, we've had one sign up for this afternoon of call to order.
Okay.
Okay. It would be Bruce Ona, who is a parent, guardian, and committee member.
Hello, neighbors. Good to see you, I think, all here. The last time I stated the Roseville Area School Equity Training puts pressure to confess whiteness as if that's something shameful, and about what was left out. That besides each person being individually unique, every student, staff, parent is created equal, which America's founding documents and Martin Luther King Jr. supports. Each has equal worth and value based on they were created in God's image, not evolved by happenstance. Each is a magnificent plan of God. Each is great of Him. We are not an evolution, but at birth, even in the mother's womb, we have basic human values of purpose, a plan, a destiny by God for their lives, not a chance or accident. This is the shared heritage for each human being, according to America's founders, Constitution, civil rights leaders, etc. Next, let's look at the Roseville Equity Vision, which states it's committed to ensuring an equitable and respectful learning environment for every student, family, and staff member. This is regardless of unchangeable characteristics and religion. What's notable is the addition of certain groups, beliefs, and the exclusions, repression, and suppression of commonly held truths and beliefs. One of these commonly held beliefs is affirming the birth sex of each human being at birth as innate and unchangeable. This is backed by DNA science. The Science Times reported on January 24th, 2022, researchers from Stanford Medicine found that men's and women's brains are different, and it comes down to their genes. They found more than 1,000 genes are more active in the gray matter of one gender's brain than the other. So it's clearly, you know, who's a girl and who's a boy. It's clearly that you cannot change the DNA makeup.
Okay. That takes us to our consent agenda. I move passage of the consent agenda except for gifts, catered retirements. Moved and seconded. Those in favor?